the other men explain the group a lot better than I can, because I'm only fairly new to it anyway. I am a reconveyed national. I have disassociated with the local government, with the governments. I can't fully disassociate with them yet because I still have a driver's licence, I still have a registered vehicle, but that will change in the near future. But apart from that, if you just listen to what we have to say, we have plenty of newspapers down the back that you can freely purchase. There's a book down the back there from a woman by the name of Honoraries, who was the fiduciary for America, Australia and all Commonwealth countries, which actually shows you what the government, or the so-called government, has been doing to every one of you for the last 160, 170 years. It's not a pretty sight, and it's not. It's very hard for people to comprehend, very hard for people to wrap their head around that the government is like that the government wants to treat its people this way. But they're only in it for themselves, they're not in it for you and me. They're in it for themselves, they're in it for international corporations, and that's where all the money from this country goes. Instead of benefiting the people of the land, the people of the country, instead of benefiting us as a nation, it all goes overseas to corporate elites and everyone else that take, beginning 86% of our resources are foreign owned. 86% of our resources should be fully owned by us. And that's what we should be running this country on, is those resources. By a government that works for the people, not tries to control the people. Works for the people, by the people, and the people tell them what needs to be done. They're supposed to just do what they're told. And I will just introduce you now to Darren and Mookie. Mookie is one of the original founders of the TASA organisation. Him and his wonderful wife have done all the paperwork and everything that's needed for reconveyance. All the stuff can be found on our websites. So I'll just introduce you to Darren and Mookie and let them take the floor and tell you all you need to know.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Jeff. My name's Darren. I'm the Queensland Region Coordinator on the National Assembly.
Good job, mate.
I'll talk to you a bit more about assemblies and why they are necessary after Mookie's had a chance to introduce himself and just a little bit of a backstory. So how we came to be here because of his journey, and also a bit of history as to the state of the nation and what government's all about, and all that sort of stuff. So I'll hand it to you, Mookie, to kick us off.
Can everyone hear me? I won't do that. Alright, I'm Mookie. Thanks everyone for coming today. It's very much appreciated. So where do I begin? So I guess we can talk about last year a little bit. Darren and I went around the country and did 36 different talks. This is pretty good because I love public speaking. So please bear with me. It makes me nervous speaking in front of anyone, let alone a gathering of more than 10. So yeah, we went, where did we travel? So we went down south first, didn't we?
We did New South Wales.
New South Wales, went all through regional New South Wales, down the coast, did Sydney, all through regional Victoria, regional South Australia, jumped on a plane, flew over to WA, did a big talk there, it was massive, had a lot of the sheriffs over there, a lot of common law groups that came together. And then we came back and we zigzagged up and down, or up the coast. So with Darren, 36 different talks, and then I jumped in the automobile and gone up to North Queensland. I think I'm a bit lost. We've done over 40 talks anyway. We've just come back from Darwin. Been doing a lot of work with Uncle Juma up in Darwin and the Larrakia mob. So these guys want to reconvey all of Larrakia, and that's massive. So we're very honoured. They came to one of the TASA meetings in Darwin, and they've been working with Craig Oldroyd, who's another beautiful soul, another warrior, but kept on getting into strife, let's say, trouble, couldn't work out why. So in our journey, or my wife and I's journey, or even my journey, if I'm going to take it right back, as a young fellow, I left home from school pretty young, and I started ringing up the territory at a place called Flower Station, Bailey Waters, up in the Northern Territory. And yeah, I grew up there. So I was 19, early 20s, and then started travelling around the country, and ended up travelling around the world. But travelling around what I thought was Australia till I was 27, working with big corporations as well, rigging, all that sort of stuff, and just trying to get a win and trying to work out how we win in this system that we're born into, or should I say we're birthed into. That's the key word, being birthed. So, and I just kept finding it being undermining. You can't really get a win in the system. And all the travelling that I was doing, I was having a lot of interest because everything's on the road. I've literally done millions of kilometres on the road. And I just saw having a lot of interactions with the police because there's a numbers game. Not that I'm hooning around, just a numbers game, and literally discovering police hiding in the middle of nowhere. And I mean out back, hundreds of miles in the middle of nowhere, with cameramen and all this sort of stuff. I'm thinking, what the bloody hell is going on? You know, and the school system, you know, going through the school system and it didn't gel. The whole school system never gelled with me. And I complained to my mother, why do I have to go to school? And she made it clear that I'd be a ward of the state if I didn't go to school. So I was forced to go to school, and they used to get us to stand there for hours on end and sing, "For we are young and free, so long as you go to school, otherwise you'll be a ward of the state." So it never gelled with me, because I knew it was baloney, it was bollocks. It's like, and we had a teacher that used to make us every day chant, "Thou shalt forgive those who trespass against us," whilst I'm being trespassed against and being forced to be somewhere I didn't want to be. None of it made sense. So, hence leaving school at the age of 14 and travelling, going out to territory, and then in between the wet seasons, the different seasons, started travelling around this big beautiful country and meeting lots of different people and having lots of different experiences. But by the age of 27, I'd had enough of the legal system and the rorting on the road, because my employment meant I was on the road all the time. And I was just having these stupid interactions and losing points and all the rest of it for a few kilometres over the limit and all this sort of stuff. And it was affecting my career. And I was doing pretty well. I was a comms rigger by the time I left the country, communications rigger working with Telstra. But I had enough, so I thought I'll do this overseas. So I went overseas and started travelling. Because all I wanted to do was being free. I just wanted to be free. And it didn't matter what I did, I just couldn't be free. You know, even before I left the country, I got a van. I purchased a van. I'd be free. Because otherwise, I'd be a lifelong mortgage, or if I'm renting, I'm always thinking about how do I pay my rent. It's like this never-ending. Where do I get peace and freedom? It doesn't matter. Like the birds, they don't have to pay to live. The kangaroos, the wallabies, they don't have to pay to live. They get born, they live their life. But us, I just figured, doesn't matter what day of the week it is, we're constantly thinking, how do we put food on the table? How do we keep a roof over the head? We've got to pay to live. We've all seen it. We've got all the community areas now filling up with vans and homeless, hiding in amongst all the vans, very expensive vans. Lots of homeless. If you look closely in there, and they're getting constantly outed. So there's nowhere you can actually live for free. You must pay. You must pay. And what annoyed me even more is we're not even paying with tangible wealth. They're promissory notes. So we've got people forcing us to pay with promissory notes that are absolutely worthless. It's only our misconceived belief that they have value, that hold value, that gives it any value whatsoever. But these promissory notes, It's a piece of plastic and we're trading with it. We're trading tangible items, tractors and trucks and homes and real sweat equity stuff that we've been working for all our lives. So I started working out, if you pay for a home, a $500,000 home, with $500,000 worth of promises, have you paid for that home? No, you haven't. None of us. I don't care if your home's unencumbered or not. If you pay for that home with promissory notes, guess what? It hasn't been paid for. And this is where we're working out about the word usufruct. Can somebody read that out?
The legal right of using and enjoying the fruits of profits or something belonging to another. While you're under
usufruct. So it's a story of Adam and Eve. It really is. I'm working out because it's a satanic cult. Everything we're literally spelled into subjugation. But we all are somewhat familiar with the story of Adam and Eve, where Eve uses the fruit and she falls asleep, never to reawaken, the poisonous fruit. Usufruct is Latin and means to use the fruit. We hear the story of Snow White. She uses the fruit. She falls asleep. The story of usufruct is on the back of an Apple computer. When you open up an Apple laptop, what's on the back of it? With a bite taken out of it, the poisonous fruit. The logo for Woolworths, the apple. Coles, now Woolworths are using the green apple, Coles now inside their trucks are the red apple. Everything is telling us about the poisonous fruit. And what's the poisonous fruit? It's a birth certificate. The poisonous fruit is a birth certificate. It's an estate trust, also known in legal terms as a person. So a person in law means corporation. And that birth certificate is a corporation. It's a birth certificate estate trust. And every single person in the Commonwealth of Australia is entitled to their share of the Commonwealth. And guess what? They get it. Every single person gets that share. Remembering a person's corporation. How does this work? How does this work? So every single person gets a share of that Commonwealth. I bet you some of you are sitting there going, oh, I don't get any checks. I'm struggling to put food on the table. Well, this is where the trick lies. So, as they rape the land and soil of this country, and they send the iron ore, the coal seam gas, uranium, whatever it is, the precious metals, go overseas, the tangible wealth comes back, because when the corporate governments are trading amongst each other, they're trading in tangible wealth. The slaves trade in promissory notes. We're held in usufruct. So the checks come back to bean counters in Canberra. The bean counters will total those checks and then divide it by 26 million Australian persons. And it's floated on the US stock exchange. So remembering the person is the birth certificate and it's a trust. So that trust starts when you're a little baby in the cradle and it matures, it's totally matured at the age of 75. Okay, so after 75 years, depending on what you've done through the course of your life, these trusts for one person can get up to the tens of billions, with a B, of dollars for one person. Let's go back to March 2020. So just over 5 years ago.
Before you do that, just want to explain how that trust gets to that value.
All the precious metals or precious minerals that get dug out of the ground, land and soil of all our various countries, going to foreign countries or foreign corporations, they're unidroit corporations. If you're not familiar with unidroit, I need you to check that out. UNIGROIT. New corporations, they're trading amongst each other. But it's basically all those precious minerals divided by 26 million Australian persons, and that's what goes into those estate trusts. And they float, they just get bigger and bigger through the course of our life, but we know nothing about it.
So it's like an annual payment bookie every time they take it over, it keeps coming back sort of thing.
Everything. There's thousands of ships leave their shores every day.
Everything's sold.
Yeah, and those checks are coming in left, right, and centre, and then they total them, and then divide by 26 million Australian persons. Because each person's entitled to their share of the Commonwealth. Commonwealth. Okay, but it's not so common, is it?
So that's the living people, as in...
No, persons are absolutely corporate. That's a corporate realm. The corporate realm does not recognise living man.
No, but I'm saying the people, the persons that are alive, that they're persons...
The people that are alive, we're deceived into giving life to the person. But allow me to explain. It's a tricky one, so I'll explain it as best I can. So every single person, okay, so back to March 2020. March 2020, for those who aren't aware, Australia's not a country, it's a corporation. Okay, it's an American corporation, which is a subsidiary of Britain Inc. Over the last 160 years, Britain has morphed into a massive corporation. So, in April 2020, for those who are paying attention, they would have seen the national debt in America. The American national debt was a very Masonic $33 trillion. Familiar with that sort of figure? So it's a bit high now, but anyway, they had to pay that debt. And March 2020 is when they pulled the trigger on this whole ruse. So March 2020, they announced the pandemic. April 2020, oil plummeted to minus $38 a barrel. Think petrodollar. Oil plummeted to minus $38 a barrel. So I'm going to give you a quote, a direct quote, out of an Aussie law book. It's called Elements of Roman Law by R.W. Lee, 1946, well before 1973. Quote, rights of masters over slaves. Slavery implies complete disability, personal and proprietary. The master can exercise over the slave the power of life and death. Everything acquired by the slave is acquired for the master. Registration. A rule formally qualified if the slave is held in usufruct. If the slave is using the poisonous fruit of the birth certificate of the state trust to identify themselves, they are legally defined as slave held in usufruct. Okay. April 2020, oil plummets minus $38 a barrel. A month before they announced the pandemic. I'm going to re-quote what I just said because I want you to sink it into your heads. Rights of masters over slaves. Slavery implies complete disability, personal and proprietary. The master can exercise over the slave the power of life and death. Everything acquired by the slave is acquired for the master, a rule formally qualified if the slave is held in usufruct. So when we're 17, what's every 17-year-old want to do? They want to be free from mum and dad, don't they? I don't want to be told what time to go to bed. I want to go party with my friends. How am I going to be free? I need a driver's license. Okay, how do I get a driver's license? I've got to identify myself. Oh, we need a birth certificate. So this is where it starts. So I get a birth certificate. Now I have a driver's license. So I now need an automobile because I've got to pay for the driver's license. Now, how am I going to pay for the automobile? I've got to get a job. So, I get a job, I'm catching a bus, I don't want the bus, I want my own automobile. The boss says, yes, we need your tax file number. Well, what's that? Oh, just give it, you've got a birth certificate, driver's license? Yes, I do. Sure, we can help you out with the tax file number. So, before we know it, we're now looking at our first wage, our first paycheck. Very exciting for every 17-year-old. Very exciting stuff. But it's not like the old days where you got a little orange slip in your top pocket. Because, you know, after all, banks get robbed. And now the banks are robbing the people. So, everything's encouraged to be digital. Put it in your bank account. You need a bank account. So all of a sudden, you've got to go to the bank and open up an account. How do I open up an account? Oh, we'll take a driver's license and a birth certificate or a Medicare card. Oh, I haven't got a Medicare card, but I've got a driver's license and a birth certificate. That'll do. Can you see where this is going? So now you're getting mortgages and it's all done through the birth certificate. It all originates through the birth certificate. It all stems from being birthed. Your birth ships. That's why they call it a nativity scene, not a birth scene. Men and women, it's a nativity, it's a state of nativity. So, long story short, they need to pay the $33 trillion debt. So they announced the pandemic because they need to cash in their assets. And this is the rub. This is the rub. They can't cash in a birth certificate of state trust without a death certificate. Let me repeat that. They can't cash in a birth certificate of state trust without a death certificate. So, just like they can't force you to use the legal name, because it's actually illegal to use a legal name. You might think I'm crazy, but I can assure you that's true. Just like they can't force you to use a legal name, they can't force you to take a jab. But guess what? They can enslave a piece of paper and then deceive us to give life to that bit of paper, which is known as a straw man. And that's where we all are today. We've all been deceived into giving life into a piece of paper and a state trust. And that's how the corporations claim to own us. Because a police officer will say, he's got your driver's license, he'll say, is that you? And you go, yeah, me. Well, is it really? Or is that you? That's you. That is a piece of paper, a piece of plastic. And that's how we're all deceived. We're deceived into giving life to their inanimate object. And that defines us as a person. In law, everything's ecclesiastical, meaning religious. Where do all roads lead? Parramatta? They lead to Rome. Rome wasn't built in a day. When in Rome, do what the Romans do. So we're in this situation where we're being cashed in. We're in the middle of a genocide and a reset. Webster Dictionary, 1828. Reset. To harbour outlaws and criminals. So they pretty much do this, if you go back through your history, this isn't the first time they've done this. Anyone heard of the Spanish flu? They're cashing in their assets. Anyone heard of the beaches of Gallipoli? They're cashing in their assets. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't a mistake. They were cashing in. It was a blood sacrifice, and they were cashing in, they were resetting. And every time they reset, they cash our estate trusts in, refloat their ship, refloat their boat, and off they go like a frog in a sock. So that's where we're at. So this journey has taken me through all the common law groups because, like everyone else, I just want to live a peaceful, free and easy life without too much stress. So the last thing my wife and I wanted to do on earth was to create a new nation. It's the last thing. You know, we live in an unencumbered property, we live in the rainforest, we could have easily freed ourselves and pulled our head in. However, if you're not free, I can't be free. If you guys aren't free, we can't be free. So we freed ourselves, but we're surrounded in a subjugated system. So we decided to start joining these groups, these different groups, because there's heaps, and we support all of them, we love them all, because they're all bringing people to different stages of truth. However, the common thread that we kept on finding was usufruct. There's no such thing as a live birth. How can you, if we're not birthed, you only birth ships, there's no such thing as a live birth. It's another semantic deceit. So these people go, oh, I've got a live birth record. And sure, they go into a different state of usufruct. So there's usufruct heavy and there's usufruct light. Let's make it as simple as possible. So usufruct heavy is where every Australian has been since 1973. Usufruct heavy in law is known as alien jure status. A lien I. Alien jurors. If you put a financial lien against something, what have you done? Been frozen. It's a frozen asset. It can't work. It's frozen in time. Abeyance. So since 1973, when Whitlam said, God save the Queen, because nothing's going to save the Governor General, I guess you guys probably wouldn't be old enough to remember that, eh? Well, that's when they sold us out. But guess what? There's a corporation before that. There's a corporation before that. They just sold their slaves to the new master. And the new master was the Roman municipal government. And each time they go bankrupt, they go from one to the other, backwards and forwards. It's the two snakes wrapped around the medical symbol. It's the two snakes. The British Territorial and the Roman Municipal, both corporations. One goes bust, the other one takes over. And they keep doing it over and over and over again. So in 1973, the Roman Municipal took over and started misaddressing the people. In grammatical terms, can you guys tell the difference? Who's misaddressing it? The British Territorial Government will misaddress you using titles. Mr, Mrs, Doctor, Professor, Ambassador. They're all slave titles. None of them define a living man. So that's the British Territorial. That's how they'll that's how they'll mark their slaves. That's how they'll address their slaves. They'll use titles. The Roman Municipal Government or corporate service provider, they use the all caps. It's known as dog Latin or illegible acronyms. Did they teach you to write in all caps at school? No, because it's not English. It's not English, they're illegible acronyms. How do we know they're illegible acronyms? Because there are styles manual. So just like we have a dictionary that teaches how to spell the different words, there's style manuals, especially for legal documentation or lawful documentation, that tells us how to format legal documents or lawful documents. And if you go to the Oxford Style Manual, you'll see that the all caps literature is not in there. However, it's in the Chicago Manual of Style on page 666, quite literally, under Foreign Languages header as American Sign Language. It's a sign language. That's why they say it's a sin to sign. That's why persons have to sign. They don't autograph. Only living man autographs. Person sign. Okay? Because it's giving them access to the estate trust. For a mortgage, for example, when you sign a mortgage, that document is already copyright material. any mark that you put on it then becomes their asset. It's rubber stamped. So they give you digits on a screen, and what's actually happening is you're allowing access into the estate trust. They go get the tangible wealth, let's say it's a $500,000 loan. They'll give you 500,000 promises on a screen, and they'll go straight into your estate trust and get 500,000 intangible wealth. Because they're working intangible assets. Okay, so it's, and they haven't got enough. They want more. They want more. So, is everyone feeling the pinch of hyperinflation? Can you feel it when you're going to get your groceries? Even going to get your beer? You know, there's a lot of people, you see them walking into the bottle line on a Friday afternoon, they're not happy. You know, for a lot of people, they go and get themselves drunk on a Friday night to forget about the week they've just had and the week they're about to go into. You know, there's a lot of depressed people out there, and they can't work out why. Because the faster they spin, the harder they run on the hamster wheel, the more they're getting taxed, the more they're getting robbed, the more they're getting fleeced. They can't work it out. And if you don't comprehend usufruct, quite seriously, it's the most powerful word in law, and none of the groups are talking about it. I've been screaming from the rooftops because the remedy hasn't been there. So I started talking about the two jurisdictions, alien juris, alien I, they put a lien against I. So that's consider that a person in solitary confinement. They're in a prison cell, they can't get out of it. So the way I liken the other groups, which are doing fantastic work, I've got nothing bad to say, except for the fact they're not talking about usufruct. However, there's a massive difference in usufruct. That's alien jure status, prison cell. These common law groups, they've got a big crowbar of knowledge and say, hey brother, that's terrible in there, you want to come out with us? We're free out here. And who wouldn't like to get out of the prison cell? Well, we've got this crowbar of knowledge, and we're going to pop that gate open, and now you're free. Sui juris. It's called sui juris status. And as a sui juris person, you're free to run around the exercise yard as much as you like. And if you get dizzy, you're free, so you can turn around and go around the other way in the exercise yard. But don't touch the fence. You're still in the exercise yard. You're a sui juris person. Sui juris means free, but not a free man. A sui juris person. So you're still a possession or chattel belonging to the British corporation. To the British corporation.
How do you spell it?
Sui juris, S-U-I-J-U-R-I-S. 2 words. J-U-R-I-S. Sui juris. So sui juris persons, free to run around the exercise yard. In Australia, where's Australia? Acts Interpretation Act 1901, Section 2B. Australia includes Norfolk Island, Christmas Island, Copeland Island, Keely Island. Includes no further territory.
It's on page 5 in the first edition, the inaugural edition of the Terra Australis, and just over there.
There you go. So, then the next thing is to think about a maxim, a legal maxim, a Latin maxim, which is imperative. Because there's lots of maxims. I don't want to teach you lots of maxims. I want to teach you the imperative one that you really need to know and you can remember. It's called inclusio, exclusio. Inclusio, exclusio. Include, exclude. So the maxim reads, to paraphrase, everything written into a contract, it's a legal maxim, everything written into a contract intentionally, anything not put into a contract, or the word includes, intentionally excludes everything not mentioned. I hope you got that. So what I'm saying is, Australia includes Norfolk Island, Christmas Island, Cocos Island, Keeling Island, meaning it includes no further territory. They don't talk about the mainland continent that we're on now.
I'm a black fellow from this country. This is my great-great-grandmother's country. Right near where you sit here. It's our people, the Waka Nation.
Yep.
You're saying that includes me.
What's that?
You say that includes me as well.
If you're using the birth certificate of state trust, yes. If you're using that birth certificate to identify yourself, you put yourself in the Roman jurisdiction. So yeah, absolutely. So if you make a claim to be Australian in any way, shape or form, guess what? There's a counterclaim, because the whole legal system works on assumption and presumption. So if you claim to be an Aussie,
So you say that applies to all our black fellows in
Yep.
this country?
yep,
Wow.
yes, and this is why Uncle Juma and the Larrakia mob up north, they've worked this out. They've been fighting pretty hard for a long time. I've watched them closely. They've worked it out. So every time you claim Australia, guess what the counterclaim is? That you're a chattel, possession belonging to the bankrupt corporation known as Australia. This is not Australia. The definition of state includes everything up to the shoreline. End quote. Inclusio, exclusio. Everything included intentionally excludes everything not mentioned. Inclusio, exclusio. Everything included excludes everything not mentioned. Intentionally excludes everything not mentioned.
So in reality, they're claiming the 12-mile limit back to the shore.
Yeah. Everything, and that's why they're in Canberra. There's an underground river that runs all the way to Canberra. It's all maritime. Even this is why we had traffic islands. It's all maritime. It's 100% maritime because the black fellow was here. They couldn't claim this land and soil. So they claimed these uninhabited islands and then deceived all the slaves that they brought here to believe that this is Australia. Because they had to be seen to be doing the right thing under international law. Because don't forget, the rest of the world's watching them. They can all see what's going on. But they're all part of the Masonic club. There's all Masonic echelons in all these countries. So they're all keeping a secret because they've all got secrets to hide. Excuse me, they're all running a slave trade. All the countries around the world. Doesn't matter where you're from. You start looking up Unidroit and you'll figure out that, guess what? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, the BRICS, Unidroit, Australia, America, Canada, Unidroit. They're all Unidroit corporations. All the allied countries and even the so-called unfriendlies, the so-called foe. How many times have you heard the fear porn for Russia, Russia, Russia? Just another Unidroit corporation. They are all shepherds herding the people for one world government. And it's all from usufruct.
So the Australian is finalised?
Yeah, but I'm not worried about any of that. And I like to talk on the phone. Talking on the phone, I like to educate them because I know they're listening. And I had no fear because I left usufruct many years ago. So I left the system with a document called Clausula Rebus Extantibus, which is a powerful document. If you're on Telegram, I posted it recently last week or so. Clausula Rebus Extantibus. It's a catch clause because the fraud exposed is null and void, nunc pro tunc, meaning now for then for now, nunc pro tunc, tunc pro nunc. So once it's exposed, it's null and void. You know, they can't force you to commit fraud once it's been exposed. So there's so much fraud. As I say, the state definition of state includes everything up to the shoreline. You know, the definition of birth includes a stillbirth. Quote unquote. The legal definition of birth includes a stillbirth. Quote unquote. If that doesn't punch you right on the frickin' nose, I don't know what will.
And because the placenta is classified as the twin, it's a stillbirth, so they actually made two trusts out of one.
It's quite sad what he's saying, but Jeff is on the mark. This satanic cult has been doing this for 3,000 years. They've been doing it for 3,000 years. The Maltese cross that you see on the side of every ambulance, that Maltese cross can be traced back to the hospitaliers of 1099. Hospitaliers. And Darren, because I've been banging on about this for years, Darren actually found their handbook, the hospitaliers handbook, printed 1099 to 1310, with a great big Maltese cross on the front cover. You open up and it's to tell us about the religious military called the hospitaliers. It's a religious military hospital system, which has been banging on for well over 1,000 years. So that Maltese cross can not only be traced past that, can be traced all the way back to the Anunnaki in the Egyptian tombs. Don't get me started. So I don't think we're here alone. I think we're being controlled by a different species. But what they are and who they are, I know very little about. That's my research has led me to comprehend that. It's not what I teach, but I just know that we're not here alone. And I don't think this is other men and women doing this to us. Put it that way. Legal definition of hue man is monster. Hue of man is a shade of man or a colour of man. So are we going to get any justice, or are we going to get any remedy through the International Declaration of Human Rights? Resident, res, R-E-S, res is Latin. It means thing. Okay? It's an abbreviation of resident. So if you define yourself as a resident, do you think you're getting any rights? Because you define yourself as a thing. And if you define yourself as a thing, and you're living in Australia, come on in, mate.
I've seen you before.
Yeah, mate. Take a seat.
Grab a seat.
Yeah, so if you define yourself as a resident, you define yourself as a thing, you define yourself as hue of man, hue man, you define yourself as a monster. That's what the legal definition of hue man means. Hue of man answers the colour of law, which is rules and regulations for private corporation. If you go to Unidroid's website, Unidroid membership, top left-hand corner of the website, in bold, makes it very, very clear. Unidroid is the international unification of private law. So, what have you got when you walk around McDonald's? Private law. Or you're working for McDonald's. Private law. So the first day the manager will go, alright, he'll take you out the back and show you a notice board and say, right, there are our rules and regulations. Read them or you don't have a job. So you read the rules and regulations and you start your first day at McDonald's. So that's the private laws for that corporation. So we're all under statutes and acts. Why acts? Because we're acting, giving life to that piece of paper. For those who are not aware, the Bar Association is a registered theatre and entertainment company. Okay? If you start doing your research on Shakespeare and the Merry Men, and it all started with a routine of men dressing up as women and being very successful at it, and guess what? They're still doing it today. Okay? I don't know if you know about Jacinda Ardern, but yeah, she's packing a punch, I'll tell you. But this is how close to home it is. Jacinda is not Jacinda, I can assure you, and here she is, or was, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. So that's how close to home this crap is to us. And they've been flaunting in our faces for a long, long time and getting away with it. I believe it's only the internet, the age of the internet, that's bringing them to task. But there we go. So we're in the middle of genocide. They're cashing in the birth certificate estate trusts. It is what it is. We've all got family who've had the jab. Children, mothers, fathers, uncles, grandparents. Some have already passed. Some that are already getting sick. You're seeing it. You're seeing it everywhere. It's a genocide. We can't, it's done. What is done is done. The time for trying to wake people up, as far as that's concerned, is well and truly gone. They are cashing those birth certificates as they have done in the past, and they do it en masse. So what do? How do we protect ourselves? Are we going to get any remedy from the 1900 Constitution, Commonwealth of Australia? Because the Commonwealth of Australia is a corporation. It's 1900. I'll go to page 36, makes it very clear. He's got it there. If anyone wants to have a look, ask John. Page 36, Australia is a penal settlement. Can anyone remember the referendum when we had a vote to change it to anything else? No. So you're all documented slaves. I'm here to tell you. So it's what you do. Because, as I say, there are two types of usufruct. Usufruct heavy and usufruct light. And for a lot of people, usufruct light is very cool and groovy. They're happy with that. They don't want to think too much. They're in the exercise yard. They get to keep all their bits and pieces like driver's license and all that sort of stuff. We do too. However, there's a bit of a process we do. But yeah, a lot of people are very scared to step out of the exercise yard. And that's understandable in a lot of ways because nobody knows any different. This has been passed down, this slavery has been passed from father to son, mother to daughter. So this is when my wife and I, we worked out we could not get any sincere remedy from any of the groups. But we found Judge Arnott on rights. We found her over a decade ago, about 12 years ago, and we've been following her work every day ever since. Prolific writer, beautiful soul. And if you haven't read that affidavit up the back, I highly recommend you do. There's special editions. If you get that on Amazon, they're about $85. We've got them here today with a 4-page addendum for us here to show you the definition of state, inclusio, exclusio, definition of Australia, definition of territory. It's all a load of bullcrap. But we've got those definitions and addendums in that book. We've got them for $35. So, and I might just grab one. They're written for the layman. Thank you very much. They are very much written for the layman because it's a very in-depth topic. There's lots of pictures, but it's an affidavit. Okay. Now a copy of this was given to every world leader back in 2014. Now, affidavit is the most powerful document in law. Once we reconvey, we actually do a living testimony in the form of an affidavit, because only persons can do an affidavit. However, this affidavit was given to every world leader in 2014, and the author, or should I say authors, have never been arrested. Now, if you lie on an affidavit, you're looking at minimum 5 years jail. That's why they're the most powerful documents in law. It's an affidavit as a person. As I say, when we reconvey, we do a living testimony in the form of an affidavit. But it's the real deal. If you lie on an affidavit, you'll get 5 years jail. That's why an unrebutted affidavit stands as truth in law. This has never been rebutted. And the information in there will blow your mind.
I'm still confused. It might be basic, but what do we call ourselves? A person?
Man, woman, bloke, sheilas, anything but persons. Or humans. You know, like, I'm even going with mob. The black fellas are on it. Stop calling them tribes, because tribes are tribute to Rome. They're mobs. I'm happy with mob. They're happy with mob. I'm happy with my mob. They're happy with their mob. I grew up with the black fellas in territory. They accepted me, I accepted them. We never had a problem with. The common denominator for us all is the corporations that are defining us things and treating us as serfs. You know, and pretending we're free while they're doing it. I'd rather just be upfront and honest and just say, hey, you're running a slave trade, but then it wouldn't work, would it? So this is where we're at. Common law groups, as far as my wife and I were concerned, wouldn't take us out of usufruct. And if you go to the Bible, whether you're religious or not, because if you're using the fruits of the birth certificate, you're Roman Catholic. Okay? If you were using the poisonous fruits of the birth certificate, you are Roman Catholic. I don't care if you say you're atheist, or a Buddha, or a Hare Krishna. If you're using the birth certificate of state trust to identify yourself, you're giving your soul. It's a soul contract. Excuse me. You've given your soul to the Roman Catholic Church, which is a pagan cult. So let's not beat around the bush. This is fair dinkum stuff. So what's the ultimate law book? The Bible. It's there, whether you like it or not, whether you hate it, whether you use it as a doorstop, whatever. But what most people don't comprehend is two gods in the Bible. And we've all been deceived to worship the wrong God. James 2:9 makes it very clear, for it is a sin to respect persons. Romans 2:11, for there is no respect of persons with God. There 2 of 26 extracts from the Bible make it very, very clear there's no respect for persons with God. Or popes. Doesn't surprise me either. So, it's not my opinion. This is a compilation of dots that my wife and I have drawn to get the bigger picture, and we see the bigger picture. We can see straight through all the propaganda. You know, who thinks Trump's going to save us? Who really thinks you can vote yourself out of this crap? Does anyone here think you can vote yourself out of this?
Just got to vote harder.
You've got to vote harder! You've got to vote harder! So that's where we're at, boys and girls. So we're following this beautiful woman, Anna von Wright. She's a Superior Court Justice. She went through the legal system, realised it was all fraud. She left the bar and she became a landlord judge and did her homework. And wow, if you haven't read any of her work, I'd urge you to go to annavonrights.com and read number 2. Actually, you'll find it in the front of this book as well. It's called The Nut is Cracked. And what that will show you is the different formats of the name. So, for those who haven't heard before, I encourage you to go home, pull out the wallet, pull out the purse, whatever it is, spread all the cards out on the table. Get your passport, throw that in the mix as well. So you've got Medicare cards, you've got bank cards, you've got driver's licences, all that stuff. Look at the name closely. You'll see it's the same name, but if you're paying close attention, you'll see that same name is formatted differently every time. And each format is a different corporation that ye are giving life to. Let me repeat that. I urge you to go to Judge Anna von Wright's website, annavonrights.com. She's literally got nearly 6,000 writings. So you can go to the very top, it's number 2, and read The Nut is Cracked. It's a 5-minute read. The Nut is Cracked. And you will see which corporation owns which format. So you're literally going to see, when you pull the cards out and put them on the table, it's going to smack you in the face when you go, oh wow, yeah, they are different format. They've just got the same name, but they're all formatted differently. Upper and lower case, some might have a bigger middle initial, like if it's McGregor, it might be MC. Some might just be M. They're all formatted differently. They're called naming conventions. And you get giving life to it. Because the living man does not have a name. Aha! Living man does not use names. Only things have names. Living man uses an appellation. And there's actually appellate courts to deal with this sort of stuff. So naming conventions are the naming of things. So you've got the reconveyance process is about taking control of those names, not accessing the birth certificate of state trust, which some groups do, with very little success as far as I've seen, because he who creates owns. Did you create the birth certificate of state trust? So it's not yours. even though your name has been misused to create these trusts, it's still not your trust. However, the fact that you've been using these names and they've been adversely used against us to enslave us, we can take control of those names and bring them out of that watery maritime admiralty jurisdiction and bring them back to the land and soil jurisdiction of where we're born. Okay, if you're born on these lands, like Uncle Juma made it very clear only a couple of months ago when I was up there, you're original. We all have the same mother, father. It's the corporations that we need to get rid of. You know, everyone, all the immigration. Well, don't worry about the immigration. That will sort itself out. The people need to sort themselves out first. Unsavoury immigration, we'll get weeded out, and it has done in the past all around the world. This sort of stuff's happening in various wars around the world. It's another warfare tactic. We need to take control of ourselves, take control of those naming conventions, realise who we are, what we're not, and come together and assemble. So we've got now, well, our documentation's been uploaded over 50,000 times. They're never going to stick that gene out. Never, never, never. And guess what? All over the country, right now, there are groups just like this having a very similar discussion in their local communities. How can we do this? How can we get our councils on track? Well, they're not even our councils. They've voted 3 times for council, 3 referendums, and we said bugger off each time. How do we have these councils? Because we don't have any rights. If you go and vote, and you use the legal name to vote, do you have any rights? Rights of masters over slaves, slavery implies complete disability, personal and proprietary. The master can exercise over the slave the power of life and death. Everything acquired by the slave is acquired for the master. A rule formally qualified, the slave is held in usufruct. So, no. Even if we vote harder, we're not going to get out of this mess. We're in a bucket, and voting is a usufruct bucket, and voting is akin to pulling on the handle trying to lift the bucket. Wouldn't you agree? So the whole idea of reconveyance is to step out of that bucket. We still need it, but we're not about overthrowing government. We're not about overthrowing government because guess what? We don't have a government. We've never had one. We have service providers masquerading as government. Do we want to overthrow our service providers? No. Do you need your bins empty? Do you want your fluoride water to your house? Do you want your foot water unfluoridated? This is the thing, you still need these services, but hey, you don't want fluoride in your water. You know, you want this, you want that, you don't want this, you don't want that. We all know what we don't like and what's unsavoury, and we all know what we need and what we do like. But the slaves will never have a say in that, not a real say. Okay, so, let me give you a great example, black fella, white fella. After April 20, 2020, when oil plummeted minus $38 a barrel, meaning the petrodollar tanked, and the corporations, all corporate governments have been trading whilst insolvent for the last 5+ years. What else happened? All the slaves were emancipated. Did you feel free? No, they're telling you to stay inside, wear a mask, do what you're told. But you were free. You were emancipated at that stage. You were free, but you didn't know. Nobody told you. You had yellow man or orange man, an oil baron at the helm in America. Did he mention anything about oil going to minus $38 a barrel? But he happened to kick in a few extra billion for a few extra shocks for Captain Operation Warp Speed. He's the CEO, and he's cash in his chattel. So this is the crux. This is the crux of where we're at. We need to reclaim the different names, the various names, educate ourselves, network with each other. I know Warren is the boilermaker, and we were discussing him coming to property to help us build a little hall like this. You know, do I want to use any other boilermaker? No, because I know he's a state national. I want to support state national. And this is how we go to support ourselves and each other and build. You know, we've been given indemnity bonds from the living law firm who Anna works with in America. So we're very fortunate in the fact that because the Americans worked out this fraud like 40 years ago, so they've been working on this for 40 plus years, we're very fortunate, that they had to claim back their assets that the corporate America had taken since World War II. So what are these assets? Guess what? China. Page 169 of this book makes it very clear. It's fantastic. So she goes through all the different corporations, which we see as countries, but they're not a corporation. And Australia isn't here, page 169. Canada, Japan, United States of America, all caps, United Kingdom, all caps, the European Union, all caps, the IMF, BIS. So, World Bank, they're all under lien, and ANA is the fiduciary. So, all the assets in the Australia Corporation are in control of the Americans now. That lien has been in place since 2014. So that's another thing that the different groups, they don't comprehend that. They're lacking that knowledge. Does it make them bad? No. Just, we don't know what we don't know. Fortunately, we have that knowledge. You know, I've read that book over and over, and I've been reading it over and over since 2014. So I'm very familiar with the book. And I realise that if people want remedy within that system, they've got to respect that international lien. Because if you don't respect that international lien, what are you doing anything? You know, why would you do anything in that system? Because the system doesn't work. So that system, or this lien works with the maxim first in time, first in law. First in time, first in law. So the Americans have got all the assets of the Australia Corporation seized. So you'll go all around this country and you'll find police stations that are abandoned, courthouses that are abandoned, lots of them in rural areas. They're turning them into museums and all that sort of stuff. They're our assets, they're the people. They're the people that are born on this land. And it's where we come together and we create, in small assemblies, and I'll explain it better, in small local assemblies, a world that reflects the one we want. Whether it be black, white or brindle, we all want similar things. We all want to be left alone, we don't want to be harassed, we want to be able to go shopping or hunting or whatever we do, not be harassed in doing it, so long as we do no harm to anyone else. But this is our time when we have to come together. There's been so much division. And this is how it works. The Roman Catholic Church, divide and rule. Masonic, the navigational dividers of Admiralty law and the Builder's Square rule. Divide and rule. So we must unite and conquer. We don't have to do it violently. All we have to do is tell our service providers what to do and what not to do out of usufruct. Because once we're out of usufruct, they have to listen. Especially when we come together in unity. In love, unity, consciousness. Massive difference. Massive difference to all what we've grown up with, what we've all endured, all the crap that we've had to put up with, is gone. We can build a world that we want out of usufruct. And we can do it locally. In little small communities like this, small action groups like this, small assemblies like this. And we now have them all over the country. And they're springing up like wildfire. The people are getting it. It really is. It's about usufruct. It's all about the poisonous fruit. And if you're using it, you're in trouble. And the ones that I've seen, the successful ones that I've seen, I don't need to name names, but if you're following this movement, you'll know there's a few people in prison. And it's because they won't stop using the poisonous fruit. They learn their system so well. I know all the statutes, I know all the acts. Well, guess what? They're rules and regulations, and the people who made those rules and regulations are at liberty to change them whenever they like. So if they see a slave that's got really cocky and learnt all their laws and all their statutes and acts, guess what they do? I've seen it with my own eyes. They change all the laws, the rules and regulations. They come into court and they start spreading all these rules and regulations, and the bar association goes, lock him up, 3 years jail. Happened to Dean Clifford over a decade ago in Canada. As soon as I saw that happen to Dean Clifford, I said enough of that. Why am I filling my head full of their crap? Because it's rules and regulations for private corporation, and if I learn all these statutes and acts inside out, I'm filling my head full of a lot of crap that can be changed overnight before I go to court. So why would I bother? Why would I bother? Because they are statutes and acts, they're not laws for men and women. They are statutes and acts for legal persons. Any questions?
Yeah, are we talking about eventually having parallel communities where we are sort of doing our own thing?
Yes, in a way, but we're all working together.
Yeah, exactly.
We're all working together in love, unity, consciousness, and it's working very well so far. You have seen the weekend we had 2 weeks ago, and we had a retreat down in Maroochydore. We had 84 people coming from the Northern Territory, or Northern Australis, I should say, from Victoria, New South Wales. They're coming out from Roma. They came from everywhere. And we're about to release a video. The love, unity, consciousness that was going on that weekend was insane. I mean, absolutely insane. The energy was electric all weekend. And even the people who were running the event, they couldn't believe it. They made comment they hadn't had such a high vibrational energy group in their facility, which I found very flattering. Because you find that the people that come together in groups like this think differently. They think differently. They're thinking for a start. And most of the time you go to their homes and they haven't got fluoride running through the taps. They're thinking. Most people aren't thinking because we've been under attack for a long time. As kids, they take us out, drill our good teeth out and fill them full of mercury. You think that's because they love us and want us to be happy? They're dumbing us down. They're dumbing us down. They're dumbing us down with that. They dumb us down with one verse city. What's a one verse city? Uni. Verse. City. Where do all roads lead? Parramatta. So we've got all these so-called intellectuals in society, they're all trained in the same place, in one verse city. They're all taught by the Romans. So the doctors are taught how to kill us, and they don't even know. They're taught by religious military. Not my opinion. Get on our Telegram page and look up hospiteurs. I've been posting it insanely for the last few months. You can read it for yourself. Foreign religious military. Well, when the birth certificate estate trust enslavement starts there, and they have a vested financial interest in cashing with a death certificate, would you call that friendly? Really, I don't call that friendly. You know, what they've done to the original people, the original stewards of these lands, abhorrent, unpardonable, disgusting. But hey, we're all in it now. We're all in it. It's not just the black fellas anymore. It's us too, all of us. All of us. We have to come together. That's when Uncle Juma up in Darwin, up in Marapia, started talking the way he was talking. He had one father. Had me bubbling like a little girl. Finally, someone could see it. And he could see it clearly. He could see it clearly. We need to come together. We were all original. If you're born here, you're original. And causing any trouble and breaking laws, what's done is done. Nobody can change the past. And we came here as slaves, and the blackfellas were turned into slaves. We've all got the same common enemy, have to work together for the common good.
The media perpetuate that, mate. Look here, the media perpetuate that.
Yeah, the hate and the anger, yeah, that's why I turned the TV off decades ago. It's all bullshit. Excuse my language, it's all crap. It's all, especially international stuff. When I started travelling around the world, I was like, holy hell, did I awaken to the fraud and the deception and how encapsulated we are here. Where do we get our knowledge from? If not from the media, you know? You sit at a table at work and we're all discussing the same thing, but we've got various angles of it. Oh, I listen to Channel 7. Oh no, they shit, I listen to Channel 8 and Channel 9. So you're all talking about what they want you to talk about. You know, the newspapers, the radios, it's all controlled. Can't say government. If you govern the flow of water, you're controlling it, yeah? Mentate. Control the mind. You know what I mean? Just another spell. So all I'm asking you is control your own bloody mind, do some critical thinking, and step out of usufruct and start working together in love, unity, consciousness. Sue.
You talked about reconveyance.
Yep.
Why should I reconvey?
Well, there's numerous various things. For one, the corporate service providers have a vested financial interest in your demise. So that first and foremost, they are bankrupt, and they know if they can cash in your birth certificate of state trust, they are closer to being liquid. Okay? So that's a massive one. They literally have a vested financial interest in killing you. So think about that. That's a good one. And the two, it's like I was saying, in usufruct, you're in that bucket. So you can't seek any legitimate remedy outside of usufruct. And if they don't like the direction you're going, they will move the goalposts to ensure you never get it through. Okay, so that you have to get legitimate remedy, you have to get it out of that jurisdiction to lift that bucket and get remedy. For three, God wants you to do it. As I say, it's in the Bible, and Job 28:28 makes it very clear, we must turn our backs on evil. Does anyone here think that this system isn't evil? No hands up. So we are obliged to turn our backs on evil and leave this system.
What about the High Court, right? They say that, to me, I don't really think they've got the right to rule on this, but they gave the ruling that the original people have jurisdiction over the land, right?
Yeah.
So then you've got all these local councils that are charging land tax, and are they giving that to the local original people? I doubt it.
And where are they giving that land? Where are they giving it to? Which High Court was it? The High Court of Norfolk Island?
Yeah, that's right, High Court.
Isn't land the people?
Right? No, soil. We're claiming the land and soil. The land is everything below the first 6 inches. So the people live on the soil, but what they're really wanting is the land. So they want to dig big holes in it and just mine the shit out of it. That's basically.
They want our land, our asset.
Yeah. That's because they've already sold it. It's already sold. If you own a property, if you have an unencumbered property that's not reconveyed, I promise you, it's already sold. They've gone bankrupt. They lost it 5 years ago. So they weren't expecting this level of awakening. They were not expecting. They were expecting to do another reset and just on with their citizenship.
Can you explain that bit about 5 years ago? Can you explain that bit about 5 years ago? We were free. It's probably related.
Yeah. So 5 years ago, oil plummeted -$38 a barrel. So all the allied countries on the same day went bust. So remembering that a person is a corporation, and a person in law literally means corporation. So if all the corporations go bust at the same time, that means the chattel are just walking around. Just picture it like a fence full of cows. And the liquidation, somebody's just cut all the fences around the paddock. So the cows are still hanging around inside the paddock because they know the trough is there, they're hanging around, they've got the green grass, they're still hanging around. You might get the odd one that wanders out. They're still hanging around. So what's the farmer do? He wants to keep his cows in that paddock, so he'll go and get some link blocks and he'll get some extra feed and he'll put it in the middle of the paddock to try and encourage them back. Well, they did that with the yes and no referendum. You know, who do you want? You know, the black fella, you've got to vote no. Oh no, you've got to vote yes, the white fella, black, white. See the division. It's positive and negative. We live in a magnetic world. This is why we see the lights on ambulances, police. Red, blue, boxing rings. Red, blue. Political rings. Red, blue, positive, negative. We live in a magnetic world. Yeah, red pill, blue pill. They are telling us it is the yin and the yang. And this is why we have to come together with love. It is love, unity, consciousness. It's not airy-fairy bullshit, I promise. It is love, unity, consciousness that is going to get us out of this mess. Okay, because this cult has seen nothing but violence for 3,000 years. They love it because it's a military. It's always been a military, and the hospital's a military. Okay, right through the political system, Governor General. Hospital system, Surgeon General. Okay? And what are nurses running around all day? They're following doctor's orders. Okay? And where are they working? They're working with wards. They're in the wards. And if you want to get out, you've got to get yourself a discharge. Because you're in the military, boy. Down home. That's it. It's a civilian military. And guess what? If you start talking freedom talk whilst in usufruct, guess what happens? Oh. We've got ourselves another. He keeps talking about freedom. We need to get him dosed up and in a padded cell. And that's what they do. That's exactly what they do. And how can they do that? Using the poisonous fruit. Rights of masters over slaves. Slavery implies complete disability, personal and proprietary. The master can exercise over the slave the power of life and death. Everything acquired by the slave is acquired for the master. Was the Roman slave a thing or a person? The answer is he was both. And as such was a res, R-E-S, resident. A rule formally qualified for the slave is held and usufruct. So that's the catchword, usufruct. And the remedy is reclaiming those naming conventions and raising our vibrational consciousness to a love, unity consciousness. The end, we win. All we have to do is step out and realise it's not about violence, it's not about anger, it's not about division, it's about unity out of usufruct. No hands?
Yeah, how do we get there?
How do we get there? So we reconvey. This is where Darren's going to come up and have a yarn and start talking about standing the assembly. So we actually, 2 weeks ago, we had a Declaration of Independence and a Declaration of Peace. So we've declared our independence from the Australia Corporation and Australia. And we have made it very clear that our blood and our attachment is to the land and soil of where we're born. So we are reconveying to where we're born. And we've got the blackfellas right across the country watching us very closely. And they're wanting to join us. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I feel very honoured. When I found out about Uncle Juma wanting us to go to Darwin, I cried like a little girl because I grew up in the territory. I grew up with the blackfellas up there. They were beautiful. I had wonderful memories of their teachings and just spending time with these guys and girls. So yeah, I bubbled like a little girl, and it couldn't stop me. I was in my unregistered automobile, and before you knew, I was parking that next to signs and Darwin and taking photos and showing the world. The police followed us all the way. The police met us at Barclay Homestead as we're fueling up. There's 4 of them there waiting for us. And we smiled and said, "Have a nice day." And we travelled off into the sunset up the Stewart Highway. And they followed us about 50 k's down the Cat Shrine. This little parking area on the side of the road, so we parked in. There's some other cars. Been a long day, so we had a few rumbos, a couple of rums and water and lemon. We had that on the car. Set up a little barbecue and having a fun time. And the police came in. They spoke to everyone except for us. And they drove out. Another rum and a bit more barbecue action. Half an hour later, they come back. Spoke to everyone except for us. And off they went. Coming back at the back of Winton, now the back of Winton, in the middle of nowhere. We're doing exactly 4 kilometres over the limit. I set my cruise control. It was 110 zone. I was sitting on 114. And literally in the middle of nowhere, there's no automobiles, no car. And this police car comes from behind, because we had the car loaded full of gear, so I couldn't even see out the back window. Comes out and pulls up alongside us. But I had the window up and it's tinted. Holy hell! I Sean to me, the guy Elizabeth. And we just started laughing. Yep. We didn't know how to react. And they sat there for a few seconds, and then boom, off they went. Overtook us. There's no way on earth they didn't spot our number plates. But, you know, we've been held to task. I've been held to task. And when they force you to use a legal name against your will after you've reconveyed, now we're in the capital crime territory. Okay, we're in capital crime because now it's abject slavery. So the last time, which was years ago, they tried to play games with me and pull me out of my automobile. I hit the magistrate up and all the police up for war crime perfidy. You guys familiar with war crime perfidy? So if, let's say we're having a battle, you guys are on the other side of the field, I'm on this side, I'm in my foxhole, I'm shooting away, and I run out of ammunition. And I say to myself, well, this is a dire situation, so I get my white underwear and I start waving them in the air, and I get out of the foxhole very gingerly, my hand there, because I'm surrendering. I'm coming over, I'm no longer a threat to you. I'm in the middle of the battlefield, and you start shooting me down. That's called war crime perfidy, capital crimes. Well, this is the thing, when we surrender the use of the birth certificate and say trust, and then they force us to use it, it's called war crime perfidy.
Yeah, just happened this week.
Pardon?
They had to report the Honoraries and hold up a piece of paper with the...
Are you reading back?
Not me, it wasn't me, it was someone else.
It wasn't you? Did they read back?
I believe they had.
You
So
believe
they
it,
got
right?
hassled in Brisbane.
Pardon?
They got hassled in Brisbane,
Yeah.
come back to Honoraries, and they had to go and,
No.
badly supplied all their documents, wouldn't accept it, had the fingerprint, weren't allowed to write on fingerprint stuff.
And this is pretty much
So
what happened to me.
They've been given a call.
This is what happened to me. You know, I hammered everyone with war crime perfidy tacit agreements because they couldn't answer my living testimony in the form of an affidavit. And as soon as I gave them all tacit agreements for war crime perfidy, the magistrate retired. So, I know it's powerful. Now we've tapped into the Solicitor General. The Solicitor General is on notice. The Solicitor General is the only agent within the whole corporate system that is obliged to know all forms of law, which is massive. So no one else is obliged. You know? So our respondents in the past were Attorney General State, Attorney General Federal, Treasury State, Treasury Federal, and the Lord Mayor of the inner city of London. Why do we address the Treasury? Because naming conventions are financial instruments. For the naming of things, and those things are called financial instruments. It's not for the naming of men and women. So we need the Treasury to know in the past were Attorney General State, Attorney General Federal, Treasury State, Treasury Federal, and the Lord Mayor of the inner city of London. Why do we address the Treasury? Because naming conventions are financial instruments. They are for the naming of things, and those things are called financial instruments. It's not for the naming of men and women. So we need the Treasury to know that they can't plunder those accounts anymore. Because the only way that they can plunder while we're alive is when they use the hospital system, the schooling system, and the prison system. They can keep a prisoner for $1 a day. They love saying that. What they don't say is they're tapping the estate trust for $9,000 a day. That's how they fleece the trust while we're alive. Okay? So it's all plunder. It's all rapacious plunder. So when we're forced into their jurisdiction, it's a crime called personage and press ganging. Everyone familiar with press ganging? Okay. So it's when somebody's totally left the system, is no longer in user faith, and they try and explain this to the officer on the side of the road. And the officer's, he's offended by somebody who's not a slave, so they get on the radio and back up, I mean back up quickly. I've got another one who's had too much to think. And before you know it, they're all surrounding the car and they're rubbing their guns in their faces. And it's total intimidation and coercion to get you into contract. It's called press ganging, capital crime. It's called press ganging and it's a capital crime. Very, very serious.
They think that's a heritage.
And this is where the ants will catch up with them. We get more and more unrebutted affidavits, and the hammer will fall. So when you get those affidavits, then you get tacit agreements. That's when they start waking up, and then they stop doing it. They quit their jobs, they retire. Well, why don't you do it at the first LPA? Why don't you do it at the first when I go to you? Why did you, a month later, bring it to court? Because that's Veracity. If you can't rebut this affidavit now, what are you taking to court for? Because the reason why I gave you this affidavit is to avoid the court. Oh, but you're still taking it through court. Oh, so you're showing, you're displaying to me your criminal intent of enslavement. Because you can't rebut my LTA. So this is where we start getting into war crimes. And the war crimes hurt, they're smart. They start realising. Because they're trying to keep this thing a secret. Because as they wake up, they can't retain. Retention's not there. The retention's not in the military. The retention's not in the police. They're leaving their droves. And the scary thing is, what are they replacing them with? Foreigners and numbskulls. Foreigners and numbskulls. Complete numbskulls. The lowest of the lowest of what we have in the community. Because they'll just do what they're told for a paycheck. No, I'll ignore war crimes, yeah, I'll ignore that. Then I'll give you crocodile tears when I'm addressed for them. Well, show us in your job description where it says you can commit capital crimes. Show us in your job description where you can ignore affidavits. Show us in your job description where it says you can press gang the people in your jurisdiction. Show us in your job description where you can commit personage. Show us in your job description where you can commit battery. Oh, you can't. No, you weren't just doing your job, you're a little criminal, aren't you? Because they are. They're criminals. They are criminals. Well, they probably don't start off criminal, but if they're ignoring affidavits, the first time they ever ignore an affidavit, they become a criminal. Okay, that's them. That's them. That's why they're the most powerful documents in law. They're there to protect whoever writes them. Hope I got it all covered. You get all that? If not, you'll have to get a replay.
What's your Telegram channel?
A TASA official channel, I think it's called. If you give that man your phone, he'll probably get you on there.
No, but that, I think it's on this card.
What's in this? Why is spending that money on it?
It all goes back to Britain.
Yeah.
It all goes back to Britain, and it's all tangible.
Yeah.
But remember what I said earlier. I don't think it's our species,
Yeah.
and I think it goes back to the gold. They're actually it's about mining the gold. That's what I think. Yes.
Do you feel the corporations have repaid their 33 million,
Trillion.
in debt, or do you expect another plan?
Oh no, well, Trump and his billionaire oligarch friends have just paid a big whack of trying to get back on the scene because of ARMA.
Yeah.
Because they just wanted to reset and reflow.
Musk, didn't he get out of that? Or I've read something anyway. No.
It's all dodgy.
Oh,
It's all well and truly dodgy.
Yeah.
And the Bar Association has a $279 trillion lien against them.
That's in Anna's book, isn't it?
Yes.
The lien.
Yeah, the lien's in that affidavit, $279 trillion lien. And that's why the whole cashless thing and recontracting. And they changed the name from Australia all caps to Australia upper and lower case. That's what happens each time they go bankrupt. They bring it up, same, but slightly different. The United States of America with a capital T. The United States of America, lowercase t. Boom. Registered, copyright, they start again. And nobody's the wiser. They can do it to 350 million Americans and the rest of the world, and nobody picks up on it. So they have now. Anyway, I'd like to introduce my good friend, Darren. Thank you very much for your time, brother.
Thanks, Ricky.
I guess we talk about how do we get out of this mess. There's a lot of people doing things like petitions. And petitions are a great thing. They're a way of letting the corporation know that they're dissatisfied with their services. But is it taken seriously? Most people are not aware there are two dictionaries. I'm guessing people in this room are aware. There's a dictionary you used at school, and there's a legal dictionary. And we tend to talk thinking in terms of the words as they're described in the dictionary that we have at school, or the English dictionary. What happens when you walk into a courtroom is there are two conversions that can take place. One is you get converted from the living man into the person, and the other is the language gets converted from English into the legal language, legalese or whatever you want to call it. So in the legal speak, and this is the speak that the politicians write their acts and statutes in and that the courts operate under, petition is equivalent to begging. Begging. So it is the slaves begging their masters for some liberty, some leave to go ashore, some additional rights, some extra rum on the journey or whatever. But it's not how you express the people's will. Same with protesting. So we've seen in the last few years that protesting doesn't work. In fact, the government is quite happy to turn weapons on the people. In the legal dictionary, to protest is tantamount to begging. It is the slaves asking their masters for some extra liberties. So that's not how we express the collective will of the people. Okay? This is a big bear that we're up against. Now they've got centuries or thousands of years of building this system and enslaving people. So they're pretty good at cutting us off at every turn. And we need to poke that bear from every different angle. Most people, by the time they get to TASA or to the Assemblies, have already been down the path of the common law, looking for remedy, looking for solutions, or dived into statutes, looking for remedies and solutions. And we need to be aware of that stuff, because even once you reconvey, maybe more so, you're likely to be tested. They don't want the slaves to escape. They don't want us to break free. So we have regularly we get people who are being, I usually describe it as having unwanted interactions with the legacy system. That can be councils, or it can be the policy enforcers, it could be whatever. We still have to occasionally use their hospitals. I'm sure we all like to stay as far away from them as we possibly can. But we have these unwanted interactions. We have to work our way through that. So knowing the legal system is important. And we can have the occasional win in their courts using common law and using the statutes. So it's important we're aware of that. But there's no long-term solution, and there's certainly no solution for everybody by using common law, statutes, the Constitution, for example. Warren at the back here runs a fortnightly litigation committee group. There's a Zoom meeting. And on that Zoom meeting, the people who have had unwanted interactions can come onto that meeting and talk about their challenges and get some assistance from people that are experienced in that space to work their way through that. And you'll find the information for Warren's Zoom meeting on the national website. There's a link at the bottom of the website for all of the collaboration opportunities. So you can get involved in meetings on America, meetings all across Terra Australis, most nights of the week, most days of the week. I think most people are aware the corporation is supposed to be there to protect the people and their property and to fulfil the collective will of the people. That's what a governmental services provider is supposed to do. Clearly they don't do that, and the reason being they've gone rogue because they're not getting instruction in the way that they comprehend. So protesting and doing petitions is not what they comprehend as receiving the people's will. So the way we do it is we assemble. So the assemblies, there's a couple of important elements to it. One is the local assembly. So if this is a representative of the local area, the people come together and they decide what they want to happen in their local area. And this is the place where the authority of governance exists. So our National Assembly can't come to a local assembly and say you have to do this, you have to do that. In fact, it works the other way around. It's the local assemblies that tell the National Assembly what it needs to do. So the local assembly is where the authority is. And it's not the TASA assembly, it's your assembly. It's not Darren's assembly, it's your assembly. What we're bringing forward is the structure and the processes and the things that make it a recognised governance structure. So when you create a country, when you form a government, there are some things that need to be put in place to make sure that you receive international recognition, because it's the recognition from the international community that give you legitimacy. So our assemblies have 4 pillars. We have the General Assembly, and this in effect is the General Assembly. So this is where the discussion about what we want to happen in our local area will occur. And this is where we would vote on an initiative. Now, depending on the nature of the initiative, you might say, well, this is a small representative of the community. Now, there will be some things that this group could vote on, and that would be acceptable to the community and it would pass. So, for example, we want to put up a new playground on a vacant block of public lands, and it would probably be acceptable if that was advanced. If advance notification was given to people and only those that were interested turned up, the vote would pass and that would become the law and the playground would be built. There'd be other things that you might say, well, that's got to include the voice of everybody, so you might have to, and we'll come up with a blockchain voting app or something along those lines that people could then say, well, here's the idea, we need everybody to vote so that we have the authority to do this. I'll give an example. So the first thing we're about is ending the harm that's being caused at the moment. Once we've ended the harms, then we can start the process of building the communities and the world that we want. If we looked at, say, the sexualisation of children in the schools, this is something we saw when we were travelling, is really prevalent here. I'd seen a lot of stuff about what was happening in America, but it's happening here as well. So if it's happening in the local area and it affects the community, it's the responsibility of the community. It doesn't matter that the schools report to a state body or whatever else, it's irrelevant. It's happening here in the community. It's a problem that the community has to deal with. So my recommendation is that you would say, okay, we've got some people who are interested in addressing this issue of sexualisation of children. They would form a committee or an action group, and they would go away and they do the research. And they say, what are the actions that are happening within the schools and the kindergartens and the universities within our local area? And go and find the proof that those actions cause harm. And the things we heard about while we were travelling was obviously the nature of the books that have been kept in school libraries and council libraries that are available to the children, the we call it drag queen story hours, kiddie litter in the classrooms, all these crazy things that are going on. So you'd find there'd be plenty of evidence out there that each of these activities causes harm. And there's been psychological studies and all this sort of stuff that can go on. And you don't need all of the evidence, you just need enough evidence that would convince the people in the General Assembly that it needs to stop. So once you've had your elections and stood your assembly, or seated your assembly, the committee would come to the assembly and they'd present their information. So here's a list of all the activities that are happening, and here's evidence that those activities are causing harm. And our recommendation to the assembly is we get our, I'll talk about the government's assembly shortly, but you say, okay, we're interested in doing something about education, as in the community would decide. We want to do something about the education facilities. So we'll elect someone into an office that will enact our will on those education facilities. So the proposal to the General Assembly would be our Office of Education, whatever we want to call the title, is going to go into every one of those facilities with 2 or 3 witnesses, and they're going to present a notice of liability or a cease and desist or whatever the Assembly decides. And they're going to go and tap the principal at each of the schools and the head of whatever the child money centres is and the dean at the universities. You're going to go and tap them on the shoulder and say, here's the proof that those activities cause harm. Here's a notice of liability. If it happens again after today, it's all over. We're going to take you to court, our court. And you're going to be held to account by your neighbours for doing those things. And it's a notice doesn't affect just the principal, it affects everybody who's employed on this facility.
So is that legal court?
Yeah, I'll talk about those in a second. So, people would vote, and whether they vote yea or nay, that becomes the law. So the law is you're not allowed to do these activities anymore in these facilities. And the Office of Education, who's been elected by the people into that office, so they're acting with the authority of the people to fulfil an office, and the office will be defined and approved by the people as part of the election process. So they're doing the job that's been given the authority by the people. And then they are given I'll call it an order, but a decision that was made by the General Assembly to go and implement. So that decision is the collective will of the people. So that is the law for this community. That's what's going to happen. So when they take it, there is no higher authority than the authority of the people. So
will they acknowledge that?
Here's the trick. So it's absolutely a numbers game. Now we know from what happened in Canberra in February 2022 that there are enough of us. Our problem at the moment is we don't have unity. We've got all these different groups doing all these different things, and all power to them. We need to poke that bear from every different end. But we are seeing a lot more unity now, and instead of throwing rocks at each other, we're starting to all look at the common enemy and say, well, we've got to focus in this direction. And as Mookie said, we're not about bringing down government. What we want to do is get them under control and get them to stop delivering services we don't want, all these harmful services. Everything they do, they consider a service. They charge us for. We want them to stop the harmful ones. We want to start doing the ones that we actually want them to do. We want them done properly. And we want unity. We don't want everybody to come and reconvene and be a part of the assemblies. Because not everybody's resonating the right way at this point to want to do that anyway. we do want people to come and reconvey and become part of their assemblies and realise they can still be part of the other groups that they're in. We're not saying you can only be TASA, you can't be everybody else. You reconvey, you're free. You can make your own decisions. What we hope is you get the education and the knowledge that you don't want to be crossing jurisdictions unnecessarily or unknowingly. So if you reconvey and then you go back to your other group and start signing petitions, you put yourself at great risk, and potentially the rest of us at great risk, because you're undermining the authority of the reconveyance process. But that's not to say you can't still be a member of that group and help them with those things, because you've got knowledge in that space. So we want everybody looking at the common enemy and creating as much noise and distraction for them as we possibly can get. But we need the numbers. So most people are aware from the common law studies that an elected sheriff is the highest law office in a locality, because they're elected by the will of the people. But if they're elected with 20 votes, and they walk into a policy enforcement office and say, here's an order to do something, and order's the wrong word, but here's an instruction, the people have said you need to do this. If they've only got 20 votes behind them, they don't have a lot of authority in this current system. And the reason for that is we are living in a lawless society. There is no law. It's all legal. And that legal is their system. It's their private laws. So I'll come back around to what we're doing about that. But there is no law, and we need the weight of numbers to be able to uphold the law. Until we have a good number of region-based state nationals, and we've got enough people to fill all our offices and do a good job of it, we're not wanting to take any of those kinds of steps because they'll be ineffective. We want to make sure when we do start to take action in that space that we can actually follow through. So, I'll finish the thought on the sheriff. So 20 votes isn't going to give them a whole lot of authority. If they've got 500 votes in the local community, they're going to have a lot of authority in that office. If they've got 2,000 votes, there's not much that any policy enforcement officer is going to be able to do to ignore the collective will of 2,000 people. So we are working hard to try and encourage people to come on, reconvey, correct their status so they can take part in their assemblies and stand up and help build the assemblies. And that's the key, because again, I can't do it. It's not my assembly. It needs to be you guys coming together and getting active to make this happen. So that question was about if they don't do what we're asking, can we hold them to account? So it is about building the assemblies and getting our structure right. But that talk was about the way the General Assembly works and why it's the important step for expressing the collective will of the people. There is no other way to express the collective will of the people. And it's the collective will of the people that is how we give instruction to these service providers. I briefly mentioned the governance pillar, the governance assembly. So pretty much all of the elected officers create the governance assembly. The governance assembly's role, or the elected officer's role, is to implement